even better. All right, if you would, please turn in your copy of the scriptures to 2 Corinthians chapter 11. I'm going to read the second half of chapter 11 in 2 Corinthians. This is not the easiest passage to grasp as we go through. At least it isn't for me. Maybe it's super easy for you guys. But I'll try to give us some handles that we can place onto this. So if you would please stand, 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 16 through 33. Paul writes, I repeat, let no one think me foolish, but even if you do, accept me as a fool so that I too may boast a little. What I am saying with this boastful confidence, I say not as the Lord would, but as a fool. Since many boast according to the flesh, I too will boast, for you gladly bear with fools, being wise yourselves. For you bear it if someone makes slaves of you, or devours you, or takes advantage of you, or puts on airs, or strikes you in the face. To my shame, I must say, we were too weak for that. But whatever anyone else dares to boast of, I'm speaking as a fool, I also dare to boast of that. Are they, he's talking about the super apostles, are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they offspring of Abraham? So am I. Are they servants of Christ? I am a better one. I'm talking like a madman, with far greater labors, far more imprisonments, with countless beatings and often near death. 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes less one. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I was adrift at sea on frequent journeys, in danger from rivers, danger from robbers, danger from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brothers, in toil and hardship, through many a sleepless night, in hunger and thirst, often without food, in cold and exposure. And apart from all these other things, there is the daily pressure on me of my anxiety for all the churches. Who is weak and I'm not weak? Who is made to fall and I am not indignant? If I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. The God and Father of the Lord Jesus, he who is blessed forever, knows that I am not lying. At Damascus, the governor under King Aretas was guarding the city of Damascus in order to seize me, but I was let down in a basket through a window in the wall and escaped his hands. This is the word of the Lord to us. It is a gift from him to us. And there's comfort and encouragement for us. May he bless our understanding and my foolish preaching of it. You may be seated.
We just went over this exact passage at Charlie's chapel on Friday morning at school.
Oh, really? All right. Well, we'll see. For the record, one of our kids goes to a Christian school, and they went over this passage in chapel on Thursday morning. We'll see how close I cleave to their interpretation.
Yeah, don't blow it.
Oh, I'll try not to blow it. Too late. So I had a pastor. His name was Gary, and he had what he jokingly referred to as the I love me wall. His diplomas, his awards, certificates, all nicely framed, recognition, and he was joking when he said this is the I love me wall. But we all have those things, and we all respect those things. When we see those things, we feel, oh, okay, this person is qualified. I like to see a diploma from a big, expensive school on my surgeon's office wall. It makes me feel good, right? We do that in all kinds of situations also. I mean, a car shop may post their Best Branch in Utah from 2023 award, and we say, oh, okay, that's nice. A medical journal will post their peer-reviewed data. All of this to say, trust me, I'm qualified. I know what I'm doing. You can hear what I'm saying. Trust me. When we think people will hold back their trust, we start pushing out our accolades. We start making sure they know how qualified we are. We put out our own I love me testimonies. Yesterday at the football game, there were a couple of dads, and they were talking about how much greater the movies for Lord of the Rings were than the books. And, well, yeah. And I had to say, well, if you examine the the tropes and motifs of Western literature. That's me saying, hey, here's my certificate. I studied some of this garbage. You should trust me. You should listen to me. You should accept my opinion. We all do this. We all want to put our reputations out there so people know that we can be trusted. We're qualified here. What qualifies you? What is the ground for your authority in any situation? The basis of somebody paying you, trusting you, giving you something? Is it your schooling? Where you studied, with whom, what degrees you've earned, or the training you've completed, if you are or are not ISO 9000 certified, or whatever they do these days, I don't know. Does your success qualify you? Does your personal achievement? Do you try to make sure that people know your accomplishments and your achievements? I have a big house. I'm going to drive my money around so people know that they can listen to me and trust me. I had one person saying, I so admire how you and Susan have parented your children. Now, it's easy because these guys are awesome. And it'd be really easy to take credit, right? But they said, I see this proof of some expertise of you, so I'm interested in hearing your opinion about what I should do in this situation. So glad you asked. As I parade my little awards, my offspring in front of me. But are my kids and their lives the proof of my authority? Are they the ground of my trustworthiness? There's nothing wrong with having achievements. There's nothing wrong with being able to drive a really, really nice car. There's nothing wrong with success, good schools, or achievement. But if those are what qualifies someone to have authority, if that's the ground of their authority and the ground of their boasting, then not having those things means you're not trustworthy. If those things alone, nothing wrong with them, but if they are the ground of authority and trustworthiness, then not having them means you have no authority. And there we would have a problem. Say, for instance, with Jesus of Nazareth. This is how the world works. This is what our eyes of flesh believe and gravitate toward. You see the right diploma, you see a program that's delivering big numbers, you think, I'm going to give my trust to that person. Because look at the success, look at the power, look at the strength. But if you see suffering and pain and hunger and struggle, do you think, I will entrust myself to them? I'd like to hear their counsel. Let's be honest. No, we don't want to listen to those people. Because we think that their life circumstances declares that they have no authority, they are not trustworthy. That's when we're operating in our flesh alone. And there's nothing exceptionally virtuous about homelessness or financial struggle. That doesn't qualify you as authority. But it doesn't necessarily disqualify you. Everybody loves a winner. There's no such thing as a bandwagon fan for the team in last place. So, 2 Corinthians 11. Paul is continuing his response to the boasting of the false apostles, their foolishness, their judging by eyes of flesh, and he's now going to get very, very specific. He did in the last passage, in the first half of this chapter, he called them false apostles, servants of Satan. Don't mince words, Paul. What do you really think? Servants of Satan. And he says they're boasting that they are apostles just like me. And that's an absurd statement. We saw it last time. He said, you cannot boast about your role under the gospel. Because the gospel begins with the baseline statement, you are not worthy. There's no more room for boasting if you start with, I have nothing. Only things to disrecommend me. There's no way you can get from that point to then boasting. The gospel says you are saved only by grace with no deserving, no earning, only your naked need of forgiveness, so there's no boasting left. The gospel is the end of boasts. Because it starts with my inability and God's mercy. God, be merciful to me, like we sang. But these false apostles, they call themselves super apostles or over apostles in Corinth, are claiming a special knowledge, a secret power, a secret greater authority than Paul. So Paul says, okay, let's talk about why you should listen to me. I'll agree. We can have this debate. Let's discuss this. Let's talk about what's so special about these super apostles, and let's talk about their fruit. Because Jesus said in Matthew 7, you'll know what kind of teacher someone is by their fruit. So I want to quickly go through this passage. The second half of chapter 11 is a little difficult for me to follow the reasoning. Why are we talking like a madman? What's foolish? Where's the boasting? It's hard to parse through. So I'm going to give you some handles for the overall argument. I'll lay it out as best I can. And then I'm going to make some global observations and applications. So verses 16 to 18, he says, let no one think me foolish. Even if you do, accept me as a fool so I can boast. Since many boast according to the flesh, I too will boast. So what's Paul saying? He says, look, this is not usually like me. This is a little distasteful to me. But to make sure you hear the difference between my credentials and their credentials, I'm going to respond to their boasts and their confidence almost in the foolishness of that. I'm going to speak like a fool. I'm going to play the game by their rules for a second here. Let's do this. Let's play this out, see where it leads, right? I'm going to speak in the same kind of vein. He says, they're holding up their diplomas and their Yelp reviews, and they're showing these as evidence that you can trust them. I'll bring my evidence. Because all the things that they're showing you are according to the flesh, according to the world, according to the spirit of the world, according to the limitations of our humanity. All these things are the things the flesh can judge, the way the world values and evaluates people. He's a success, he's a failure. But Paul says this is not the way that the Lord Jesus operated in ministry. It's not even close. I'll show you, and it's going to sound foolish. So that's roughly what he's saying in verses 16 to 18. And in verse 19, it says, for you gladly bear with fools, being wise yourselves. You should hear air quotes. You should hear the sarcasm in there. He is not saying, you're doing a great job at discerning right now. Well done. Right? He is not saying you're acting wise. He is suggesting, lovingly, he says, is this wise? You're putting up with fools. Right? For you bear it if someone makes slaves of you or devours you or takes advantage of you or puts on airs or strikes you in your face. To my shame, I must say, we were too weak for that. What's Paul saying? He says, look, I really don't want to get into my history too much here, but you're putting up with this. Look at what they are doing. They are exploiting you. They are using you. They are building themselves up and tearing you down. They're emptying your pockets and filling theirs. And you're interpreting my ministry by their criteria. You're evaluating me according to the rules that they're laying out. What are they doing to you? What are you bearing with? He's indignant here. He's going to talk about that later. He's indignant with what they've been suckered into believing. He says, you're evaluating me by their criteria. Even worse, you're putting yourself under their authority and their wisdom, quote unquote, and you think you'll get this wisdom from false teachers. But they're making slaves of you. He says, watch them. They're putting on airs. Listen to them. They're pretending to be important, but really they're taking advantage of you and striking you in the face. Is that a person you should trust? The way they're using you. The way they build themselves up. They're acting all domineering and important, and you're taking that as a sign, well, they're really confident. I guess we ought to follow them. We ought to listen to somebody who's really super confident and sure that they're right. How many people have been involved in a business or a company or a family, and the one in charge was positive they were right, and everybody else in the car knew you're wrong, Dad. But we can't say anything. You're wrong, boss, but you're sitting at the head of the table. Since they're acting domineering, you take that as a sign they can be trusted because they're so confident. Yet I was among you as one who was weak. To my shame. He doesn't mean he's shameful. He's not ashamed of it. He says, evaluated by their criteria, it would be shameful for me to say I was too weak to try to be strong over you. I'm not interested in that. You call me weak and you're calling them strong. Who's the fool here? This is a hard word from Paul. Who is the true teacher? Who is for you? Paul's asking. Look at what they're doing. Verses 21, the second half of 21. But whatever anyone else dares to boast of, I'm speaking as a fool. I'm going to use their criteria here for a second. I also dare to boast of that. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they offspring of Abraham? So am I. He says, all right, let's compare resumes. What are they claiming? They're claiming to be Hebrew, meaning an ethnic Jew. Their racial heritage is of Jewish heritage. They say, we're an Israelite. That would be in this time, to say you're an Israelite means you've been identified with part of the old covenant people of God. So you're Jewish by blood. You're an Israelite by your relationship to God's covenant. And he said, and when Paul says offspring of Abraham, he's probably thinking of new covenant, as in all those who are of the faith of Abraham, as he wrote in the book of Romans, part of the new covenant people of God. So he's saying, look, they're saying they're Hebrew, they got Old Testament, they got New Testament. Is Paul saying he's just judged them as servants of Satan and false apostles? He's criticizing their judgment. He's saying they're going to be in for terrible judgment by the end of the days. So I don't think he's suggesting here that these false apostles are really, truly believers. But if that's what they're claiming, do they call themselves a Hebrew? Well, so I can do that too. Do they call themselves an Israelite? I can do that too. He just called them servants of Satan. He's not saying they're genuine people of God. I don't think. That's what the context wouldn't seem to indicate. But I think he's listing these claims in the truthness for Paul and the falseness for them in order to get to the pinnacle here of, are they servants of Christ? I'm a better one. And here he basically says, it sounds unhinged for me to say, not only am I a servant of Christ, I'm actually better. And literally he says, I am over it. Not as in, I'm so over it. But they've been calling themselves over apostles, literally. He says, I'm over that. Not only am I an apostle like these super apostles, but just go with me here. I'm even better than that. And let me show you my proof. So now he's going to list he's going to lay out his resume. He's going to start hanging things on the I love me wall. I have far greater labors, far more imprisonments. I have countless beatings. I've been often near death. I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes less one 5 times. Ready to sign up yet? 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times shipwrecked. A night and a day as drift at sea. This is probably not including the shipwreck at the end of the book of Acts. So 4 times. It'll be by the time he's done. He says, I've been in frequent journeys and danger from rivers, robbers, my own people, and the Gentiles, the city, the wilderness, danger at sea, danger. In toil and hardship, many a sleepless night. There's my diploma. There's my certification. There's my testimonial. The world has hated me. And I'm here for you. And oddly, I invite you to be hated by the world as well. This is Paul's answer. This is his letter of recommendation that he attaches to the email. This is the evidence that he is a better servant, an over-servant, his sufferings. His wall of diplomas are blood, sweat, and tear-stained tatters So he says, trust me. How crazy does that sound? There's a football player, retired now. He was on, if you ever watch the celebrity reality show, Special Forces World's Toughest Test, where they put celebrities through like military-style training. Cam Newton, who I did not enjoy his professional play, but Cam Newton had a celebration when something went really, really well on the field in football in the NFL. He called himself Superman, so he'd like run into the end zone or whatever, and he'd act like he was opening his shirt, like, revealing the S of Superman logo. Oddly enough, I never saw Cam Newton pretend to tear open his shirt after he fumbled the ball. Oddly enough, I don't see anybody, throwing up the peace sign when they just got beat deep on a go route. It's like, woo! I just got torched. Yeah! Nobody bows up when they got beat. That's what Paul is kind of doing. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. Why is this your boasting? This sounds terrible. Do not sign me up, please. Put me on your do not call list. That's what our flesh wants, right? That's what our flesh wants. I want nothing like this. Take that gospel and hit the bricks. Paul says, I am over the over-apostles. Not because I'm so tough, because I endured all this. But here's what I have. I'll put this up against their achievements, their Yelp reviews. I was shipwrecked. I was stoned. Gentiles hate me. The Jews hate me. You can know and trust that what I say is true to you, because I've suffered for it. I've paid this much to be with you. They're asking you to pay them. Why don't you go home and think about that? Then in verse 30, he says, if I must boast. Now he's kind of settling this weird argument, right? If I must boast, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to boast of the things that show my weakness. And we say, Paul, I don't think you know what the term means. It says, the God and Father, Lord Jesus, he who's blessed forever, knows I'm not lying. I've been weak enough. I got let down in a basket out the wall when I was hunted. This is not Paul saying, this is how important I am. He's saying, this is how pitiful I've been. I was trundled up like a piece of cargo and had to be snuck out of a city. Same city I was on the road to, by the way, when Jesus found me. Knocked me off my high horse. So this is Paul's resume. And again, we're not supposed to be saying, wow, look at all that Paul endured, that he must be so strong. He's saying, I want you to see how weak I am, and my weakness is exposed in all of these circumstances. There is no part of my ministry that hasn't been defined by my weakness. Point is, why would I endure all of that? Why am I standing here before you asking for more? Please, sir, may I have another? Paul says, who is weak and I'm not weak? Apart from all these other things, there's a daily pressure on me of my anxiety for all the churches. Who is made to fall and I'm not indignant? He's saying, I want you to know that I will endure any weakness for the churches. I can't get away from this burden for the people of God. And who is not made to stumble, but I don't get indignant. I get angry on your account. I'm jealous for you. The super apostles, the false apostles, are jealous for themselves. He says, I'm jealous for you. I'm here because of your weakness of understanding, of your weakness of faith, your weakness of wisdom, so I will endure any weakness like that I can to make you strong in those things. You're stumbling, you're being misled, you're being mistaught, makes me burn with anger. Forget how I endured. That's the Lord's strength. There's no other way that you could get here. My earthly strength would have been exhausted long ago. He said, it's the Lord's heart for you that I'm here. And I want you to hear that. So that's what I think that Paul is communicating to the Corinthians. So how is that any kind of resume? All of those defeats, all of that suffering, a pattern of failure. Paul didn't have a rough season. Paul was consistently defined by struggle. There were also blessings. There was also fruit. There was also victories. But the sufferings were never far behind. So how is this boasting? You'd have to be crazy to boast like this. How is it anything but shameful to be such a sad sack fall guy for Jesus? Who would want to follow this dude who has nothing? Paul says, what they say disqualifies me. What they say is the reason you shouldn't trust me, is actually the ground of my authority. Because it shows that I'm united to Jesus. And the world has always hated him. If Jesus is who you're interested in, listen to me. In Luke chapter 9, Jesus said, if anyone would come after me, would be a true disciple, would come after me and walk in the truth of the gospel, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. In that era, we think of cross as like a sweet symbol of God's love. In that era, in that time, to say take up your cross is to take up an instrument of public shame and suffering. It's not romanticized like we do because we're not in that culture. This is Jesus' invitation. Come to the kingdom. I've got a cross with your name on it. He says, let him count his life of no importance compared to the gospel. Jesus said, let him prepare to endure shame and rejection and suffering from the world. Matthew chapter 5, at the end of the Beatitudes, of blessed are the poor in spirit. They're going to be, blessed are the mournful. They'll be comforted. They'll inherit the earth. Jesus says, oh, and you know what? You know what's even better? You will be reviled and persecuted and lied about. Blessed are you when those happen. And it'll happen because you belong to me. So rejoice and be glad, Jesus said. When you are reviled, persecuted, and lied about, rejoice because you're part of the family of God, and the proof of it is the world hates you. Welcome. In Acts 5, the apostles are beaten by the high priests for preaching the gospel, but the apostles, as they're sent out, are rejoicing, having been beaten, because they were counted worthy to suffer for the name. Dude, what's wrong with you? They were counted worthy to be suffering dishonor for the purpose, the will, and the glory of Jesus. In Hebrews 12, the writer speaks of people who suffered for the faith, who endured persecutions and even death, losing everything, saying the world just flat wasn't worthy of them. Paul says, my suffering here is about Jesus. It's not about me. My proof to you is the world is rejecting him and his message. But it is here for you. Boasting according to the flesh looks like awards and trophies and diplomas. That's the way the world measures your qualifications. But in the kingdom, what looks like defeat and failure is sometimes just what it looks like to take up your cross. And what they mean as evil and shame is actually honor in the eyes of the king. And your weakness then can become the stage on which God's care and joy and love and strength and peace are displayed. You can be a jar of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to him and not you. That's what Paul's been talking about this whole series. Kingdom boasts are about our weaknesses because weaknesses show God's strength. So Paul says, listen to my weaknesses. See God's strength in that. That's for you. Because the secret is everybody's suffering. Everybody's broken. Everybody's exhausted. But the world says, suck it up, pull yourself by your bootstraps, admit no weakness. And the gospel says, no, come to me. I have strength for you. My yoke is easy. That's our qualification, to show that the surpassing, the overpower belongs to God alone and not to any man. That's the ground of our authority when we speak his word. This is boasting at the bottom. Because wherever you and I can steal credit or share the spotlight, we so will. We'll want to make it about us. How blessed to have that temptation taken away through suffering. So where is boasting? It's out of order. There's only humility, only grateful worship and service because we've been rescued from our sin, because Christ has suffered in our place on the cross, and he endured the worst for the worst. That's us. That's me. So now we don't have to regard ourselves according to the flesh. No boasts left, only to follow him. And if the suffering of the cross wasn't God's anger or Jesus' failure, and it wasn't his failure. If it wasn't Jesus' ineptitude as a leader or minister, and it wasn't. But if they were rather the world's natural response to the good news of peace with God through grace and faith alone, then why should we not expect suffering to come to us? The world will reject that message. Why should we expect any different? And if Christ's death and resurrection were the ultimate proof and argument for his divinity, then why would our qualifications not look a little something like a death and resurrection, a suffering and a restoration? Let us boast, yes, in those things that show our weakness, so that anyone who listens would be referred to the one who is the source of all your strength, to whom Jesus himself in his humanity entrusted himself on the cross. This is the ground of our authority. We can boast here at the bottom. Because the people out there who do not have that hope, who are at the bottom, they're dying. They're dying for lack of hope and comfort. They don't need your strength. They don't need your success. They don't need your good advice. They need the Lord Jesus, who's been there.